Hi viewers and welcome to the channel and welcome to another episode of the Understanding FreeCAD series. We're in episode 11. In episode 10 we looked at lofts. Now we're going to carry on in that vein, and in episode 11 we're going to be looking at lofts, but the hollow loft. We're going to be understanding how to create a hollow loft and the best practices when creating lofts, and how to edit and modify them when we've already got a loft created and we want to add more profiles. We're going to also be looking at creating a lofts that have multiple voids, and also looking at combining solid lofts and hollow lofts and understand how they work together. So I hope you're enjoying the channel, and let's have a look at this technique. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. So in FreeCAD, we're going to be using the part design. I know we can use the part for lofts. This is a part design tutorial, and we're going to create a new document. We get thrown into the task tab, and from here we can create a body and then create a sketch, or we can use the create new body and then create sketch along the toolbar here. We've also got the menu options as well. So create a body and we'll create a sketch. We're going to be doing it along the XY plane, but it's up to you what planes you want in there. Now to create a hollow loft we need a hollow profile. So that profile will basically have a skin. When I say skin, what we mean is that we have geometry like a circle, and inside we have additional geometry like so. So if I duplicate this up, it would actually create a loft between those two circles. Now it doesn't matter what shapes we are using, there always has to be two pieces of geometry like this. So for instance, if this was, say, a pipe that had oval sides, then we could use a slot and place a slot like so, and then place another slot within here. And then we would duplicate this up, or even create different geometries depending on how this needs to be shaped. And we'll go through that in a minute. Now it's important to note when we're creating these geometries, the order that we've created this in. You notice I went outside first and then inside. So for our next profile, so this is one profile here, we can create a new sketch. So we've got our first sketch, this is going to be our second sketch. We can either click the sketch button here or come up to task and create a sketch. Again, XY plane, okay. This sketch is still visible, so we can use that as a guide if we so desire. And we can come in and create our next sketch. Notice I've gone outside first and then inside. So the problem I'm going to show you in a minute didn't actually occur to me until I made a copy mistake and actually went in there and changed some of the geometry. Let me continue with this and show you what I mean. So we've got our two profiles and we can loft between these, or if we had a third profile we can loft between that as well. So it's up to you how many profiles you have in there. We're going to keep to 2 for a second, and we're going to go through lofting these. We need to create some distance between these, so come down to one of these sketches. Let's take this one first. Come down to the placement, come down to the position. This won't take effect because we've actually attached it to a plane, so we're looking at the attachment rather than the placement and the position. So we look at this attachment here. This is first in line. If the placement was first in line, then it's not attached to anything. So come down to the attachment, come down to the position, and we'll move it along the Z axis. You can see that rises up there. To create a hollow loft, it's very simple. We select one of the sketches as a starting point, and then use the standard loft tool or part design. It's an additive feature. Create an additive feature and then additive loft, and then we just add a section and then add the next loft profile in, and then we keep going. So we had another loft profile and another loft profile if we had 3 or 4 etc. in here. So this now has created a ruled surface loft between those two profiles, and it's hollow because we have basically a skin here. The ruled surface won't take effect because we have two profiles in here. If we had a third, so that's okay this, you can see we've got a void inside this loft. Let's add a third profile. So I'm going to come in, and what I need to do is either copy one of these or add a new one. Let's add a new one. XY plane, okay. And we're going to do a section view because it's sitting on the bottom there. Section view that. I'm going to create another profile in here. I'm going to use the slot again. And we'll create one like so. Notice I've gone outside first and inside. Let's close that. And also come up to the attachment. We're already on the Z there. Got sketch 02 selected, and we can move that into position. And we can add some angle on here as well. So look at the axis. So the axis is on the Z, so it's going to be rotating around there. So we can add some twisting along the angle. And we'll add a 1 to the Y as well, just to give it a bit of difference to the other angles. So we've got a bit of twist there. So I'm going to add this into the Additive Loft. Now, if we go into the Additive Loft, we can see we've got sketch 001 that's been added there. We just hit add section again and add the sketch in by clicking it. And that's created a loft across those. Notice the ruled surface is checked. So we've got a ruled surface there. That means that the surface is straight to the first profile and then straight to the second one. If we take this ruled surface off, we get some curvature in here. So this curves up. And hit OK. So now we've got our hollow loft between here. Let's have a look at the Additive Loft. You can see the ruled surface is false. The closed is false. And we can work our way down, and you can see we've got the profile in there, which is the sketch. It's the first profile, and then we got the sections here. We can add another section. For instance, let's say we had this shape and I wanted to add, say, a section down in here, so changing the order. So I'm going to create a new sketch, XY plane again. And I want to change the order of this, so I want, let's say, a bit more pinching. So I'm going to place a sketch in here. And what we can do is, before we start creating the sketch, we can move it by going to Model, click on the sketch, look at the attachment, come down to the attachment, the position. We're looking along the Z plane, which is normal to the sketch. And we can move that into position. By doing this, we can get it into the position of this loft. And then by using the section view, we can use this to get a rough idea of what we want to achieve. So I section viewed through that loft there. So I can see where I want to place along the Z axis. And then we'll have to use the section view again just to reset that. So I'm going to place a sketch along here, and we're going to go something like this. I haven't constrained these down, so outside and inside, and we can change these if we so desire. So I'm going to have a thicker part here going to a thinner part on the other side. Something like that. Let's come out to task and close that sketch. Now you can see that sketch runs along here. So how do we add it into this section? Double click the Additive Loft. And you can see we've got the sections in here. So we hit Add Section. Add the section. You see how that's come back around, which is wrong. So we can click and drag these into position. So we're going to have section 3 first, followed by 1 and 2. We have to be careful about where we place our internal section through there, so our internal void in there, because if we go to ruled surface, then you can see how that's positioned correctly. But if we start the ruled surface off, then we're going to get some bulging that's coming out here, and this will create an invalid loft. So we just have to watch out for that. So the way I would fix this is to bring in another section in here, or to reduce the bulging by bringing in the inner part of this sketch inwards. So it's okay that you see the bulging out here, and we'll double click sketch 3. You can see where that is, and we're looking for sketch 1, which I'll press the spacebar on just to show it. Double click that, and if we start moving this inwards, we've got this constraint to here, so I'm going to take some of these constraints off. Let's come down to our constraints and have a look, see what we got. Click that constraint, and we can move that. So let's move this one inwards and hit close. We can see we've now fixed that inside there. And we can come over to the Additive Loft, double click it, and we can see what's going on inside. So you can see that change has just made that transition between these shapes more manageable for the actual object. Remember also, we can come into the Additive Loft, look at the sections and click the 3 dots at the end and change the selections in here. So for instance, we could clear them all and then pick them in a different order. Hit OK. You see there's a tick by the Additive Loft. Hit Ctrl R and you can see that the order has changed. I know it's broken the model because they're out of order, but you can change the order from here. And you can see the order there has changed. So Additive Loft and the sections come in here, clear the sections, and then add them in the sequence that you want. Control R, and we get our model back. So we're now going to look at an error that can happen when creating these profiles. And this is the way you actually build the profile from the start. I'm going to create the first profile along the XY plane and hit OK. So we get our sketch there. Now watch the way I create these, the order that I create these in. We go outside and then inside. So this is the first profile. Hit close, create a new sketch, XY plane, OK. And then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go outside and then inside. This means when I separate these, FreeCAD knows which order to actually create the lift across these. So let's create some separation and separate the sketch. The very first one, come into the attachment, the position, going to change the Z axis and bring this up. Just make some separation between those. Just going to use 2 for this demonstration. I select one of them. Matter of fact, let's not select anything and use the loft. Now it's going to ask me which sketch to select. So we can select either one of these. Let's select one. So this will be the base sketch. Hit OK. You can see our object is in there. We can change this by just clicking on this object and selecting another one. So I've selected this one now. Add section and then add in the other sketch like so. You can see we've got a valid loft going across those. Now if I come into the Additive Loft and double click the sketch, and just pull the inside to the outside, then we'll get a crossover. So you can see what's happened here. And we've got this going along here. This is an invalid loft, because if we look at the additive loft and look at it from the side, you can see what's happened. The inside has gone to the outside and the outside has gone to the inside because we crossed over. And this is all due to the way we've actually created these sketches. So we must first be consistent with the way we create these sketches. So we go to the outside and then we create the inside, and then the next loft we go to the outside and then create the inside. If we get this crossing, then we create an inside and outside around the wrong way. For instance, let's cancel that and get rid of these two sketches and the additive loft. And we'll create a new sketch along the XY plane. And this time we can go for a four-sided shape, square. So I've gone outside, inside, close, new sketch, XY plane, okay. And this time I'm going to swap. So I'm going to use a slot. It's got four sides, which is quite nice. Inside, and then we're going to go outside. Let's create the separation between these. Select one of the sketches, come down to the attachment along the Z and create some separation. Now create the separation. Watch what happens when we add these sketches into an additive loft. Part design, create an additive feature, additive loft. We haven't selected a sketch yet, so let's select one. Select the top one, okay, add section, add the bottom. And you can see we've got some anomalies in here. So we've got a crossed over surface, like so. So the way we create these is important. It's easy to just come in and change these. So if I come into the additive loft and change one of these sketches and just pull the inside to the outside, like so, making sure that we've done it for all sides. Then we fix the issue. You can see I've fixed the issue there. And let's double click that additive loft, and you can see that issue has now disappeared. Remember, the same rules apply as in the other video when you're lofting with hollow lofts as well as something that's completely solid, that we can select a face and loft from this face. So that's create a new sketch in here along the XY plane, and we'll create some geometry in here. So we're going to do a section view just to get rid of this, and we're going to add a slot that goes outside and inside, like so. And we'll just pull in this point, close, and transform that sketch along the Z plane. And we'll add some angle to it. And we'll just change the axis that it's angled on as well. So we've got a bit of a curvature there when we go around. Increase that a little. So from here we can loft to this point, this sketch here, by selecting the face, creating an additive loft, and then adding a section in, like so. Hit OK. The additive loft will disappear, but double click on the additive loft. We'll bring this back into resistance and we can see what's happened. And hit OK. The same applies with the faces and how this is created. So for instance, if I come into this additive loft here and change that sketch and pull the inside to the outside, like so, hit close and bring back the Additive Loft because it's made invisible, press the spacebar. Let's have a look what's happened. You can see we've got some problems here because of the way these have crossed. So just be wary of this when you're creating the models. I've only come across this problem recently because when I very first started CAD, I was taught CAD and it was taught in a certain way. So I've been working all this time not knowing this existed. In other CAD programs and other 3D programs, then you have a choice when actually creating these lofts. Sometimes you can actually select the edges, so outside, inside, and then when you select the other part of the loft, let's say this part, then you can select the outside and then the inside and then create the loft between those. With FreeCAD, it's all to do with the arrangement of how you create that geometry in the first place. It's advisable when you create a loft between profiles that the profiles themselves have the same amount of edges as the other profiles in the loft. For instance, we're lofting through a number of circular profiles here, and there's one edge on the outside and one edge on the inside. All the others, even if they were different shapes or different sizes, let's say something like this, they would still have the same amount of edges. So we could take this, for instance, and create a loft, add section, and the next one, and we'll get this loft going through this here. If we change one of these sections, just come into the Additive Loft, and for instance change this one, which is part of the bottom section, and let's bring down the top section a bit. So change the bottom section, this one here, see that one here, double click that, and instead of the circles we'll add some square or rectangles in here. Then this has 4 sides, so each part of this has 4 sides. Hit close. You can see what's happened. We've got an additional edge which is part of the circle, and that comes from the vertex of the circle. So if we look along here, what we should have with the square, these edges come up and attach, and then we look at the circle here, you can see we've got this point here, and if we come up to the top circle, if we can find it, all we need to do is split this into 4. So rather than having one edge, we match it with the other profiles. You don't have to do it, but it is recommended to get a better shape. So what we need to do is rebuild this sketch. So rather using a single edge for the circle, we need 4 edges in there. Let's just hide the sketches, pressing the spacebar on them, so we just got the original sketch here. And I'm just going to work from the outside. I'm just going to delete that and use an arc. Go to the point, come out, click on the vertical, and we can come around and auto constraint to the horizontal because we have the tasks auto constraints on. Then we click on the center, come around, auto constrain to that point, and work our way around and do the same. Auto constraint to the point and work our way around. And we'll just repeat for the outside and the inside. Now we've got our circles with the 4 edges. Let's hit close and see what's happened. You can see now we've got those going through here. We may have to do the same with our other sketch, which we do. Let's quickly do this one. So now when we look at the object, we can see we've got a much nicer surface. It's also important to remember that we can have multiple voids within one profile like this. So we've got voids going all the way through here. This means when we loft through here, select one, and then use the loft, add sections, you can see those voids actually move along that length of that loft and connect up to those holes, like so. If I OK that and have a look what's happened and go into the Additive Loft, go into the sketch, and that's changed the position of these sketches. So these circles here, let's come down to the constraints, come down to the bottom, and we've got these points on point constraints or coincident constraints here. I'm just going to delete those and we'll cross these two over. So let's take this one and this one, which will be behind here. Move this out of the way. Let's cross these over. And hit close. Everything looks alright. You can see we've got some problems inside here. So let's double click the Additive Loft and see what's happened. You can see we've done a crossover here. So what happens if we start mixing the profiles? For instance, let's create a body and create a new sketch in here on the XY plane. And the first profile we're going to create hasn't got a void, it's just a circle. And the next one we'll create from the body, new sketch, XY plane, OK. And we'll create a circle. And we'll create two circles within, like so. Close that sketch. We'll duplicate by using Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, or Edit. Duplicate selected object. Take away the XY plane because we don't need that. OK. Duplicate that object there. And what we'll do is come into this sketch, the second one, and give it some distance. And the same with this one as well. Give it some distance. And perhaps let's add a bit of angle to that as well. And that sketch, we need an angle, say 45 degrees. Take away the Z and place it along the x-axis. And we'll just transform that as well with the position. And we'll go along the y-axis. So we've got a bit of different shapes to actually loft through there. Let's select the bottom sketch. Use the loft, add section, add the first one, add section, add the last one. OK that. And you can see loft sections need to have the same amount of inner wires as the base section. So we can't actually do that. So what do we do? If we have this shape and we wanted to loft to here or to loft to a number of profiles, and then the last one we need to loft through to basically holes all the way through there. There is a number of options. You can pad this if you so desire, or what we can do is create a loft first and then use the face. So for instance, let's just hide the last one, come into this one and remove these holes. Close that. So this sketch, I would first loft to here using a loft, add section, click on this one and hit OK. Then I can create a sketch upon this face, new sketch, add the circles, close, create a small pocket with those circles, 7mm. Then we have this face here, like so. Let's bring back the other sketch. We can use this face, use loft, add section, and then include the other sketch in there, hit OK. It will disappear, double click on the Additive loft. You can see how that's lofted through there. So what's happened is the face is basically the same as the ending sketch. We've got the same amount of edges there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 on this side as well. We could have cancel out there and Control Z back to the starting point. What we could have done is come into, say, this sketch, edit, duplicate, yeah, okay. So we've got this sketch here now. Let's just hide that. So they're in the same position. And now we can take this sketch, double click it, and remove these holes. So we've basically got an intermediate sketch here. So we've got this sketch here, which has the same sketch but with the holes. So we go from this one here, create an additive loft, add section to this one, hit OK, bring back the other sketch, this one here, and then do an additive loft with that one, add section, and this one, and hit OK. And then we've got the same, basically got the same, but we're using 4 sketches. We've lofted all the way through there. So it's up to you what way you want to actually tackle this. That's one way of actually using that with the 4 sketches, or we could create a little pocket in there just to create those faces to allow us to loft through. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.